The next time you're in the back of a car and that specific crawling sickness starts creeping up the back of your throat, remember this. Your body has not made a mistake. Your body has made a decision. It has looked at the information coming in, checked it against a rule older than the human species, and concluded with complete confidence that you are about to die. It's wrong, but the reason it's wrong is the strangest thing about you. Because here's the part nobody stops to notice. Motion sickness makes no sense. Every other unpleasant thing your body does has an obvious job. Pain stops you from putting your hand back on the stove. Fear moves you away from the thing with teeth. Fever cooks the invaders. But what exactly is nausea supposed to accomplish while you're sitting perfectly still in a padded seat, doing nothing more dangerous than being driven to your grandmother's house? Vomiting on a small boat in open water is not just useless. It's actively dangerous. It dehydrates you. It exhausts you. It makes you weaker in the exact situation where you need to be strongest. Natural selection is not sentimental. A reflex this costly, this reliable, and this widespread does not survive millions of years by accident. So it's doing something. It's just not doing what you think. Start with what your body actually knows about movement. You have 3 separate systems reporting on it constantly without asking permission. The first is your eyes. The second is proprioception, the pressure in your joints and the tension in your muscles telling you where your limbs are. The third is the one you never think about at all, buried in the bone behind each ear, the vestibular system. It's a set of 3 fluid-filled loops, each one aimed along a different axis that detect rotation as the fluid inside them lags behind the turning of your skull. Sitting underneath them are 2 little chambers packed with crystals of calcium carbonate, resting on a bed of hair cells. When you accelerate or tilt, the weight of those crystals drags. That drag is how you feel gravity. That drag is how you know which way is down. For almost all of evolutionary history, those 3 reports agreed with each other perfectly. If your eyes said the world was sliding sideways, it was because you were running, and your joints said so, and your inner ear felt the turn. Movement was something you did with your own body, and every system knew about it at the same time. Then we invented a completely new experience, being moved without moving. Boats got there first, and the language still carries the receipt. The word nausea comes from the ancient Greek nausea, which comes from nous, meaning ship. The word you use for the feeling of a bad shrimp or a hangover or dread is literally the word for ship sickness. That's how thoroughly one specific technology defined the sensation for the people who named it. For thousands of years, if your senses disagreed about motion, you were on a boat, and there was nowhere else you could have been. Then came carriages, then trains, and by the time trains were common enough, doctors were writing entire papers on railway sickness as though it were a new disease. It wasn't. It was the same 300-million-year-old alarm finally being tripped on dry land. In 1975, 2 British psychologists, James Reason and Joseph Brand, wrote what became the standard account of what goes wrong. They called it sensory conflict. Read a book in a moving car, and your eyes lock onto a page that is perfectly still, while your inner ear feels every sway of the suspension and every curve of the road. Sit below deck on a ship, and the cabin around you is motionless, while your body is being lifted and dropped by the swell. In each case, 2 systems that have never disagreed in your entire life are now saying flatly contradictory things about the same moment. And the proof that the inner ear is the guilty party is almost brutally simple. People whose vestibular organs don't function, whose inner ear balance system is absent or destroyed, are essentially immune to motion sickness. You can put them on the roughest crossing in the North Sea and nothing happens. No mismatch, no sickness. The sensation you're feeling in that back seat isn't caused by the motion, it's caused by the argument. But conflict theory only tells you when it happens. It doesn't tell you the thing that actually matters. Why nausea? Your brain has an enormous vocabulary for telling you something's wrong. It could produce a headache, dizziness, a sense of unease. Instead, it reaches for the single most specific, most violent, most metabolically expensive response in its whole catalog. Empty the stomach right now. Why that one? In 1977, a researcher at Oxford named Michel Treisman published a short paper in Science with an answer so unsettling It's still the leading explanation, almost 50 years later. Think about what actually happens when an animal eats something poisonous. A huge fraction of the neurotoxins that plants and fungi produce work by attacking exactly the machinery that coordinates your senses and your movement. That's what they're for. They scramble the connections between the eye and the ear and the muscle. And that means the very first detectable sign that you've swallowed something that's going to kill you is not pain and not a taste. It's this. Your sensory systems stop agreeing with each other. Your vision no longer lines up with your balance. Your movements no longer feel the way you predicted they would feel. Treisman's argument was that evolution found this signal and treated it as a smoke alarm. Sensory mismatch means poison. Poison means get it out immediately before more of it crosses into the blood. And so a mechanism whose real job is toxin detection got wired directly to the vomiting reflex and to a lasting disgust for whatever you'd eaten last. The anatomy backs it up in a way that's hard to argue with. Deep in your brainstem sits a small structure called the area postrema, better known as the chemoreceptor trigger zone. It has one unusual property. It sits outside the blood-brain barrier. Almost nothing does. It's deliberately exposed to your bloodstream, tasting it, looking for circulating poisons, and when it finds one, it triggers vomiting. That is its entire purpose. And that same structure receives direct input from your vestibular system. The poison detector and the balance system are wired into the same switch. You already know what this feels like, by the way, because you've probably experienced the pure version. Drink too much and the room spins and then you're sick. That's not a metaphor for motion sickness. Alcohol physically diffuses into the fluid in the gelatinous cupula inside your semicircular canals, changing their density so the balance organs start reporting rotation that isn't happening. An actual toxin in your actual blood, producing an actual sensory mismatch, producing an actual vomiting response. The system working exactly as designed. Which brings us to the truly strange part. If the theory is right, you should be able to make someone violently ill without moving them a single centimeter. And in the late 1950s, the United States Navy accidentally proved it. Pilots training in early helicopter flight simulators, machines bolted to the floor, started turning gray and asking to get out. The screen said they were banking hard. Their inner ears said they were sitting in a room. Same contradiction as the car, just reversed, and the same result. The Navy named it simulator sickness. Decades later, we rebuilt the exact same problem, put it on our faces, and called it virtual reality. And then we ran the cleanest version of the experiment anyone could ask for. We took the gravity away entirely. Roughly 2/3 of astronauts get sick in their first days in orbit, a condition NASA calls space adaptation syndrome, and it is bad enough that agencies plan around it. No spacewalks in the first 72 hours. In microgravity, the crystals in the inner ear have no weight to drag with, so the organ that has reported which way is down every second since you were an embryo goes silent, while the rotation sensors keep working normally and the eyes keep insisting on a floor and a ceiling. Maximum possible mismatch. Maximum possible sickness. And then, after 2 or 3 days, it stops. The brain quietly builds a new model of what movement is supposed to feel like. The systems start agreeing again under the new rules, and the nausea disappears, which tells you the alarm isn't triggered by weird motion at all. It's triggered by unfamiliar motion, by the gap between what your body predicted and what it got, and it goes quiet the moment the prediction catches up. And the detail from those studies that gives the whole thing away. The more flight hours a pilot had, the more likely they were to get sick. The better your internal model of how movement should feel, the louder the alarm rings when reality contradicts it. Being good at moving is what makes the mismatch unbearable. It explains the rest of it too. The driver almost never gets carsick, while the passengers do, because the driver's brain issues the command for every turn a fraction of a second before it happens and knows exactly what to expect. Prediction is what keeps the systems in agreement. And when someone tells you to look at the horizon, they're not offering folk comfort. They're telling you to give your eyes a stable reference frame so your two witnesses can get their story straight. Even the age pattern fits. Babies barely get motion sick at all. Susceptibility peaks somewhere around 9 or 10, then fades. You have to build the internal model before you can be betrayed by it. So here's the reframe. Nothing about you is broken. The system in your brainstem is running perfectly, executing a rule that was correct for hundreds of millions of years. If your senses stop agreeing, you have been poisoned, and the correct response is to purge. It is a very old, very good answer. We just invented a question it was never designed to hear. Cars, ships, planes, elevators. Headsets that pour movement into your eyes while your body sits motionless on a sofa. In all that evolutionary time, there was exactly one way for your senses to fall out of sync, and now there are 100, and your brainstem has no way to tell them apart. It has never heard of a car. It only knows the signature, and the signature says poison, which means that feeling in the back seat isn't your body failing you. It's your body trying to save your life from something you ate 100,000 years ago. It has looked at the information coming in, checked it against a rule older than the human species, and concluded with complete confidence that you are about to die. It's wrong, but it has never once been wrong for the wrong reason.